Welcome to the Career Change Diaries with me, Alice Stapleton. And today we are speaking to career changer Jemma Khan. And she was previously an account manager for an IT recruitment company before training to become a wedding florist in 2020. So welcome, Jemma. Thanks for coming on to the podcast. Hello.
You're
So,
welcome.
big disclosure to start with. Jemma is one of my oldest, bestest friends. I have known her for, what was it, 25 years, about that?
25 years this year.
25 years this year. So she is not a previous client of mine, but she is a career changer. So it'll be interesting to hear her story, of course, of which I had a front row seat over the years. But it'll be good to hear, maybe get a different perspective on it from what I witnessed as a friend. So, first of all, tell me a little bit about the work that you were doing before you changed career.
So I was very much in the corporate world of recruitment, specifically tech recruitment. And I did that for on and off 10, 12 years. So I started off like right at the bottom, being like a resourcer, and I'd have to find CVs for people and then like an account manager or a consultant would then send them on to their client and they would do all the client stuff. And then slowly I went up the ladder and became an account manager myself. So I'd run by the end of it 5 or 6 big accounts, and I'd run all their recruitment. Usually it's like a 50-50 split of being on a preferred supplier list or being like doing the direct recruitment just for that company. And I'd have a team of people to manage as well. So it's very office-based, really long hours.
Right. And that's quite a long time to be in a career. So what do you felt kept you there for that long?
Money. If I'm honest.
Money.
Because money was the big thing. And it was especially with, I think, any sales job, you become really reliant on your commission. So your base salary might not be massive, but then you make the money in the commission. And then to be able to move to another career or another job is really difficult because you can't suddenly say, oh, actually, no, I want 30 grand more than is on my base salary. And then you're just like, right, so I might as well just stick at it. And then the higher up you go, and you earn more commission, and you got responsibility, and it becomes much more of a career. Because I think when you start in recruitment, you don't ever, I think it goes one way or another. You do it for some corporate experience, because that it's a good in, really, and you get to know companies, and it gives you an idea of maybe what you could do, or you get stuck in it, like I kind of got stuck in it, and it was very difficult to get out.
Into it?
So
how did you get into it?
My uni friend, in fact, I don't know whether you remember Shani, her boyfriend, now husband, he was in IT recruitment. And just as we were leaving uni, he said I was like, oh, I don't know what to do. And I didn't want to go home for the summer. I sort of just wanted to go straight into getting a job. And he said to me, oh, Jemma, you'd be great at recruitment. And he sort of sold this dream to me. It's like, yeah, it's really people driven. You get to go out, you get to do this. It's really great fun. And so I went for he knew somebody in Manchester who he trained with, and I went for an interview with them, and I got the job. and I started literally as soon as I
Went
finished
from there.
uni. And yeah, I hated
So
it
it
pretty much
was.
straight away.
Well, we'll get on to that. But it sounds like, so the main driver was, okay, finish education, just want to get into a job. Someone mentions it, off you go, and then
Yeah.
the
And I
rest
think
is
because
history.
he sort of said to me, he's like, oh, I think you'd be really good at it. And I knew, like, from the degree that I did drama and English. I was never going to go down the drama route because I just saw it with so many obstacles to that. And then with an English degree, you can do really anything. And I had absolutely no idea. And in hindsight, maybe I should have just gone home and worked for the summer and had a bit of time to think about it. But I was
Right.
so like,
Okay.
no, I'm going to go. I want to go and live in Manchester, and I want to, be independent and earn some money.
Yeah. And I hear that a lot from clients that, yeah, as you say, they just want to get cracking, be independent, get some money coming in. And it's really appealing when you hear those sorts of jobs are quite fun, very social, in your early 20s. That all sounds quite appealing. Okay. So you just said there that you hated it straight away.
Yeah, I did. I didn't. It was very, it's very KPI driven. Everything was about numbers, and you've got to make X amount of phone calls every day. You've got to do this every day. If you don't do this, then you won't get this outcome. And I say that I did. I made some good friends. I didn't particularly like the job. I did learn a lot. There is a lot to be learned in that industry about the appropriate way to be speaking to people, the appropriate way to make an introductory phone call. I'd have to make 100 phone calls a day to people, and that's not an easy thing to do. And you were targeted on that
Oh, I
as well.
know.
Um,
Well, it's quite a scary thought for a lot of people to have to pick up the phone and
yeah,
cold call and sell
yeah.
and that
I
sort
was
of
always
thing. So I
fine.
imagine it built your confidence.
Yeah, it did, and I was always fine with the candidate side. So I was always fine, like bringing people with a job opportunity and going through that and speaking to people and finding out and getting all the information. That was absolutely fine. It was when it came to actually the hardcore sales stuff of business development, I was terrified. I just couldn't do it. That's why I went down the account management route, as opposed to like being a new business consultant, because I just couldn't have. I freeze. It's made me feel physically sick. Like, going, hi, I'm Jemma. Do you have any jobs that you want to give me and be my client?
Well, yeah, having to put yourself out there like every day. Okay, so you're doing that for quite a while, not enjoying it. At what point did you start to think, maybe I need to think about doing something else?
Well, so I've got. This is really when I think back, it's it's a bit crazy. So I did 3 years in recruitment. Started off at this first company, and I got to about 8 months in, and it just wasn't the right company. And then I found another recruitment company, and I got it. It was a good environment to work in. It was more account management. It was more of my style, and I stuck around for about 2 years. And then, for personal reasons, I decided to move home for a bit. So I worked for my family business. So I thought I'd got out, and then lo and behold, he meets my darling husband, and I came back up to Manchester. And at the time when I came back, it was 2009. So we were really still, or 2010, and we were really still suffering from the crash. So there weren't that many jobs around. there's always jobs in recruitment. You can always get a job in recruitment, especially if you've got a bit of experience.
So when you were coming back from your parents then, was there a point where you thought maybe I could do something else here, or did you go straight back into recruitment because you'd moved back to Manchester?
I looked at other things, but nothing. I got to a point where I needed to earn a certain amount of money. And I think working for your family business and then trying to get back into another job is really tricky, because people will be like, oh, what have you been doing? And I actually didn't want to do hospitality. I didn't want to be working nights. I didn't want to, it was not stable. So I just thought, right, I'm going to give it another go. And, it was fine for the first year. It was fine. And then it started to I found it very, very difficult. And then by that point, I was well and truly, I was 30, and I was like, well, I took it quite seriously, and I was like, right, well, this is my career for a bit now. And it became like a senior account manager, and I was doing presentations to big companies. And so I just got sucked in. And I always knew I wanted to do something else. And as you'll know, first of all, it was baking. I was like, I'm going to make brownies, and I'm going to sell that, or I'm going to make jam, and I'm going to sell that. So I think there was always this creative element to what I wanted to do. And I think my career change journey is quite a long one, because I did a initial floristry college course like when I was 30, I think.
Right.
And I
So
did
what
an
year
evening
was
class. That was 2011.
Okay. Right. So you kind of dabbled with it.
I dabbled with it. And I did one course, and I was like, no, I just can't afford to go and be a florist or work for a florist, because there's just not enough money in it. And if I was going to be a florist, then I'd need to have my own business. I wasn't in the right frame of mind. So I just sort of carried on and put it to the back of my mind.
When you say you couldn't afford it, is that because lifestyle, mortgage, what was going on?
Lifestyle. So my husband had set up his business as well in 2010, and we needed a steady income for a while. So just to give his business a chance, because he's in recruitment as well, and has his own recruitment business. So, but that, again, I know it takes time to build those relationships, and we just had to keep things steady, and then also, we got engaged, and there was a wedding, and life really. And for me to say, oh yeah, I'm just going to take a 75% pay cut. It wasn't, I don't think,
not great timing.
Not great timing.
Okay. And so when you did the course, what was the reason for doing that at the time?
I had to do something different. Like I grew up on a farm. I grew up outside. I didn't grow up with parents who worked in an office. And to me, working in an office felt very restrictive. I felt trapped in, it was almost, as well, in the culture of recruitment, you can't go out for lunch. You have lunch at your desk. You get to work at 8, you leave at 7, and you don't leave the building. That is just the culture of it. And it was making me really, really unhappy. I was really unhappy. And so I was like, right, if I go and do a course, I'm doing something creative for myself, and just looking at looking at something new. And I don't think I ever, can't remember, probably did say, yes, I'm going to be a florist then.
Oh, right. So
It
it was
just wasn't the right
half just
time.
interest. Right.
Yeah. And it really appealed. It really appealed to me. There was something about it. And I still don't quite understand, because there's not like any of my life up until that point I've had an interest in flowers, to be honest. I just grew up outside and in nature. So I
Yeah.
just wonder whether it's part of that infiltrated.
So, well, because you said that you dabbled with baking as well. And I think,
Yeah.
I think you started a blog at
Oh
one point,
gosh, I
didn't
did.
you?
Yeah. Yeah, I did.
And so can you remember what was going through your mind then, and how that led on to, or coming back to floristry after that, or?
So at that time, I think I was just searching for anything I could do
Right.
to take my mind off how much I really dislike my job. And all these things, be it like making jam or brownies, or I just realized, actually, I'm a creative person. I am better working with my hands, and physically making something and doing something than sitting by a computer. And it wasn't until I had my children that I could step out. I could really look at it, and that was what
For
2014. So I'd been doing lots of things to try and work out what I liked doing, I suppose. But
So you were testing out the baking, and was that after you'd done the initial floristry course, or was that
it was
before?
probably it was
About the
all
same
around the
time.
same
Okay,
time.
so testing lots of
Yeah.
different things.
And yeah, I was just trying different things. And I just realized, I thought baking was just not financially viable.
Okay.
And then you've got health and safety elements and all of that. It's just a faff.
Okay, so it was the sort of logistics and the financial
Yeah.
modelling.
It was the logistics, the financial modelling. It didn't really make sense.
Okay. So then how did you start to get a bit closer to floristry then?
So when I had the kids, so I've got two boys, and so Harry was born in 2014, and I went back to recruitment work for 6 months.
Oh, right.
I just couldn't do it.
That was after maternity leave.
After maternity leave. And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't keep up. It demanded so much time, and I was really split. And I think we'd sort of got used to not having a full salary as well.
Right.
So it wasn't such a scary prospect for me to then actually turn around and say, well, I went and helped Assad in his business for 6 months. And then I got pregnant again. So I then sort of took on the role of being a full-time mum. And that was just easier. And after I had Max in 2016, I had some postnatal depression and got myself into a bit of a tiz, really, and then came back to the idea of floristry. So just again started off and did a night course to get me out the house. That was initially what it was. It was like, I knew I really liked it. I was like, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to do my level 2. And it got me out the house every Thursday for 3 hours. And it was just about making stuff. And, I made a really good friend there as well. So that was then. And I knew that I wanted my own business. but I didn't really do anything for a bit.
And how did you get to that point? Was it just pure love of doing that second course, or did things just kind of snowball, or what was the
It was
thinking?
love from doing the course, and I think the course was better than the first course I did. The people that I met on the course really wanted to, they were all quite driven about being florists.
Right.
Whereas I think the first course was people were just like playing around.
Just for fun.
For fun, yeah. So this was a bit more serious, I think.
What, and that made you think about it more seriously too?
Yeah. And there was like loads of elements of it that I really enjoyed. I'm not saying it wasn't the best floristry course you can ever go on. I learned lots of basics, but I was always the one that would rock up with, go out foraging, and I'd be thinking about it every week. I'd be like, oh, what are we making this week? What can I get from the garden or from my dog walks that would make the work a bit more interesting? And because you have to use supermarket flowers, and you know, it's not easy working with supermarket flowers. There's nothing wrong with them, but when you're trying to learn, they're tricky. And so I'd just be the one that would turn up with a massive like sack full of ivy and twigs, and everyone was looking at me going, what?
But that's so lovely how it just kind of took over, that it just became a thing that you were filling your thoughts with, and I suppose quite kind of natural evolvement of doing it just to get you out the house, you know, help with your mental health, just something interesting to do. And that then just kind of rolled into something more serious, and by the sounds of it.
Yeah, it did. It definitely did. And I remember I think I always knew then that I wanted to do weddings as well. I never wanted to be a retail florist, never wanted a shop.
Okay. Well, because you found it too tiring. Yeah, because you kind of helped a friend in one, didn't you? Was that to kind of trial that out, or was that financial, or?
It wasn't financial because I did it for free. Oh, right. It was more like working. It was more experience.
Okay. So that kind of put that to bed.
Yeah. And I didn't ever want to be tied down by a shop and the business rates and things like that. And also, I think I knew fairly early on that the flowers that I wanted to work with, I wanted them to be higher end.
Right.
And I think that comes with doing wedding and funeral work and editorials and things.
So was that the appeal of going into weddings then, for that reason?
Yeah, and it's different, and you get to do so much. Don't get me wrong, I like making a bouquet of flowers, and I like I love going to deliver them to people. It's a really lovely feeling, but it's quite limiting. And I like doing big stuff.
Okay. So limiting in terms of the size of the project and what you're required to do.
Definitely. But that is, well, I have to caveat here, retail florists work so hard.
Yeah, it depends what you're looking for, right?
Yeah, it really does. And they're so busy. I mean, they do weddings, funerals, bouquets, you know, the whole lot, and all at once as well. Yeah. And mentally, I couldn't have handled. I don't think I could have handled that either.
Yeah. Okay, so you do your course. It all kind of becomes all encompassing, surrounded by people who are wanting to make this their career and their business. That inspires you. So then what were those first kind of steps into getting that career off the ground?
It was really slow.
Mm-hmm. Well, unfortunate timing from what I remember.
Yeah. So I did my sister's wedding. I got can't remember which step came first. So I finished the course in the June, and I did my sister's wedding in September. And that was like just completely side projects. I don't think I had set my name up or anything. So it first started off with getting a name to make it real, which was a really painful process. Not gonna lie.
In what way? What, trying to decide what to call the business?
Yeah, so difficult. It's so difficult because you don't. A lot of names are taken within floristry. You think you come up with something, and then suddenly you're like, oh, there's already a Bramble and Wild, or there's already they've used all the names that I wanted. And it was actually Assad that came up with Forage.
Okay, and I assume that was because of your approach when you were on the course and that sort of thing.
Yeah, 100% it was. It was like we realised that that's what I do, and actually it was quite fitting to my style and my ethos towards floristry. So I think after my sister's wedding, that's when I got the name.
And was your sister's wedding, was that right, this is going to be my career now? So what you tell friends and family you asked to do the wedding, or what was the thinking?
Well, I don't know what the thinking was. I want to say, it was all really clear cut, and it wasn't clear cut until for good another 18 months.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, like I did her wedding, I did another friend's wedding, and then nothing sort of came in, and I think I just hid myself away with being a mum, and was like, this is too hard. It's too hard to set up a business and look after the children. And, at the time, Assad was working like crazy hours. And then when the pandemic hit, that's when it changed.
How do you mean?
I just, after the first lockdown, I was like, no, I just can't be a stay-at-home mum. It's not what I want. I need something else. And then I went back, this floristry thing kept coming back all the time. So I started doing like weekly bouquets during lockdown, and not successfully. It was really, really difficult.
So how did you even do that? How did people hear about you? What was the start?
School
mums, okay.
Yeah, so I started off with the school.
So that's your network, I suppose. What, just telling them?
Yeah, just saying, right, I'm doing this, and they weren't like super expensive. It was like £20 bouquets, and at the time, obviously people weren't seeing each other. Flowers became really important. In that period of time, especially like weekly flowers, or not being able to see your loved ones, so get the florist to deliver something for their birthday or whatever. And then from there, so what I always wanted to do was a 4-week course. For some reason in my head, I was like, if I do a 4-week course, I will have the confidence to actually do it and to set it up.
So you didn't feel confident after the first two? You felt you needed to do something a bit more? No.
Yeah, I didn't feel it wasn't enough. I could have gone on to do level 3, but with the way colleges run now, they couldn't get a tutor to do level 3, or it was that or go and do a degree. I didn't want to go and do a degree because it was too long.
Right.
And I sort of then, once I've made my decision, I was like, I want to do it now.
So what, then you go on the internet in the search of one, or?
Yeah. So there's a few, like, I've been following on Instagram.
Okay.
And so the course I did was the Tallulah Rose Flower School. Now she originally set up in Bristol, and I'd looked at the course and I'd always thought, oh, that sounds amazing. No, sorry, it's Bath, not Bristol. That sounds amazing, but I can't leave for a month.
Oh, right. It's like a residential course.
Well, it would need to be really, otherwise, I'd be driving down to Bath on a Sunday night, and I just, you know, with the family things, I couldn't do it. But she moved up to the Lake District at the end of 2019.
And you're in Manchester, so that was a lot.
And I'm in Manchester, so it's not. It's about an hour, and after quite a lot of long discussions, and you know, you've got to make it work basically, because it's expensive. It's an expensive course to do.
So you and Assad, who's your husband, what are those discussions? Because it's quite a pivotal moment within the family unit, the relationship, your life. Can you share some of what was being debated?
Well, I think first off, he'd always wanted me to do something, and I just lacked the confidence, and I kept I kept going, oh, there's this course.
Or just dropping it in there.
Yeah, just drop it into conversation. And actually, then one day I was like, right, I've been thinking about doing this course, and I think if I get a loan to pay for it, and you know, what the extra, like the fuel and stuff, I could do it. I could do 4 weeks. I could drive there every day. It was like 10 till 4, so it meant I could, on some days I could drop the kids off to school, drive up there, and it would be manageable. We had a long discussion, and he invested in me basically, and helped me
with the course
and really
fees.
With the course fees. And it was a really tough month, and we just gone into, was so lucky because I did the course in November 2020, and the day before the course started we went into the second or the third lockdown, I can't remember.
Oh yeah, but you could carry on with educational training or something, right?
Yeah, so I was really lucky, and I think I was lucky as well because, you know, there was only 3 of us on that course. Normally there's 6 to 8,
right?
So it felt really, you know, it all felt right.
Okay, so it sounds like it's important, families on board, logistically and financially.
And
I would assume that at this point, Assad's business has grown to a point where he's able then to support the family whilst you're doing the course.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he was supporting us anyway, because I wasn't working within his business, and you know, so I was taking on the kids stuff. So for that month, I think it was pretty tough. It was tougher for him, obviously, because I was just going up to the Lake District and like immersing myself, really.
And how did you feel? Because, you know, I coach quite a lot of females, and when they are in a relationship, sometimes the reservation is about the sort of assumed power dynamic that shifts when the husband is supporting the family, when the woman is taking time and investing time, and maybe even when it's the male of the family unit too. How did you feel about that dynamic? Because obviously, knowing you, very independent, you know, like to do your own thing and that sort of thing. So how did that kind of sit with you?
It was really uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie, it was really uncomfortable. people. And it did feel like I was being, and this is all for all my stuff. I just have to like put that in, but I felt like I was taking too much time for myself.
Right.
So then I would try, like literally, I would get back. I'd be leaving the lakes at 4, getting home 5, 5:30, have tea, and then I'd feel like I had to do the bedtimes. I had to then suddenly be like, oh, I'm back as mum, and make sure that everything was ticking along. And
Right.
it was quite a lot of pressure.
So is that kind of guilt then that you kind of taking so
Yeah,
much time for you? Because I've had clients use the word indulgent. They're like, oh, it's a bit
it
indulgent
definitely felt
to do that.
indulgent.
Like, yeah. And I think that's so strange, that we sort of think, oh, yeah, it's a bit self-indulgent to invest in myself and do what I want. Yeah, it's a kind of funny
Yeah,
feeling.
it's a really funny dynamic. And I didn't feel it during the hours that I was there doing the course. I was like, fully immersed and really, really wanted to learn everything, wanted to get every single bit out of it. But then when I was at home, I just felt guilty, like I was being pulled and that I should then be extra because I hadn't been there. I hadn't done the pickup. I didn't pick my children up from school for a month, and my youngest, had he started school? He might have started school in that September. No, he hadn't. No, he was still at nursery. No, he was still at nursery. So he was still at nursery 3 days a week. Now, I can't quite remember whether we put him in for 5 days
while you were doing the
whilst
course. Yeah.
whilst I was doing the course. I can't remember.
So how did you kind of get that straight in your head then? Was it just, well, it's only temporary, just let's all get on with it?
It was only, that's exactly how I thought of it. And I was quite lucky, really, in the time of year that I did it. As soon as I finished the course, I went straight into wreath making season. So then I had work like straight after.
And
how
did you advertise that? How did that all get going?
That at the time it was school mums and Facebook. It was mainly Facebook, actually.
So you started a Facebook page, or
So when I did the course, I'd already set up my web. Had I set up my website? I definitely set up like the basics of a business. So I had my name, my email set up, my Facebook, my Instagram. I wanted the Instagram set up so it could start my journey really from the course and onwards. And I utilise that, and unfortunately it doesn't work so well on Facebook anymore. But at that time, I think because of COVID as well, it sort of I had quite a busy December.
So you do the course that then launches you into wreath season. Sounds like that goes well. Yeah. So what then starts to happen from there?
So from there, it was all about marketing myself, and I actually see this as quite a fortunate position in that when I started, weddings weren't happening. So it wasn't until May that weddings were allowed to happen, and there was this window of time for me to really market myself.
Okay.
And I quickly went with Instagram being that channel.
And what made you choose that?
it's so much more
Right.
visual, and the layout of it, Facebook doesn't really cut it. And then I wasn't going to do TikTok because I'm not
Because
cool
you're a
with the
millennial.
kids. I couldn't do all the clappy dancing and like,
Oh, but you gave it a go, Jemma. And I do remember that. I have to say about Jemma, she really, you threw yourself into trying all of these things to see what you felt comfortable with and what was going to work for your market. And yeah, you did so much like research and content planning to get that right
yeah.
initially. I thought that was great that you just kind of got on with it, really.
Yeah, I did, and but I mean, I have to. It's hard. Like
Yeah,
I
it
will
takes
say,
time. Yeah.
takes time with Instagram. I think part of you in your head, you look at people that, especially we all do it. We all compare people that have got more experience than us or a different point in their journey, and you think, oh, they've got so many followers. Oh, their work's so good. Oh, and you just have to keep on. It's like the resilience game, having your own business, and you'll know this as well.
Yeah.
And it's really scary when things dip as well, and you have like moments of going, oh, have I done the right thing, or
Well, because
where's the next one coming from?
because when it's your first year, you don't know that those are going to be your seasonal dips or whatever. They're just
Mm,
dips, as you say. There's no reference point. Yeah, and I think even in the coaching industry, yeah, it's huge comparison game. Definitely, I think no matter how many followers you've got, no matter how successful you are, there's always somebody doing more, doing better. They've got more followers. So even if you're perceivingly at the top of your game, there's always going to be somebody above that. So yeah, it can be quite difficult to manage. Yeah, and as you say, I think it's just resilience and just staying in your lane as well. Like, okay, well, this
yeah.
is me, this is my journey, these are my chapters. As you say, usually those other people have got more experience doing it for longer, may have had a helping hand somewhere along the way. You just don't know. So to compare is, yeah, not particularly
It's
helpful.
really, and it's really, yeah, it's really difficult. Um, so,
Yeah.
but I do think I was lucky as well because there were so many postponements for weddings. Um, I think I probably got more weddings in my first year than I would have done if I'd have
Yeah.
started at another point.
Well, isn't that amazing? A lot of people would think, oh, wedding florist, pandemic, what a shit show. And,
Yeah.
fears and risks and all that sort of thing. But I just think it's great that actually that was fortunate that gave you a great opportunity to, yeah, build things up. So it was there when things did start. So it just
Yeah.
shows you that you might perceive a situation to be one thing and it's just never what you might think it would be. So what would you say since then has been like the most pivotal thing, maybe in hindsight, or maybe that you're currently doing that has sort of not catapulted, but just quickened the speed of your career change and the business growing?
That's a really I I'm not sure if I'm honest. So I think I used my first that 2021. I used it as an opportunity to get my portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's sort of like every year there's a different driver, and I've realised that. And I'm not always the best at planning, but if I look back, like every year there's something new I want to do. First year was I want a portfolio of to help me, which then helped the next year.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a pivotal moment for me was doing a wedding in West Sussex, of all places. So then my cousin put me in touch with her best friend, and she was getting married down on the coast, and she sort of said, "Oh, we had a consultation, and she booked me," and I was like, "Brilliant! This is amazing!" And, it's a big wedding, English country garden, right up my street, and I was like, "Shit! It's in West Sussex, and I live in Bolton." So the logistics involved in that. Anyway, I did it.
Well,
and it went really well. It was lovely.
Some people would have been like, "What? No." But
I just
it
say
just
yes
sounds you're like,
stuff.
what is that phrase? Like, yeah, get on the yes bus, as you say. Just say yes and figure it out later.
There's very few things I say no to. I'm much more cautious now of saying yes to things that aren't aligned with where I want to be or what I think is going to help my business. But if it's something, I will always say something yes to something scary.
Mm-hmm. So you say yes to
because
that.
I can't help it. I say yes, and then I'm like,
how am I going to do that? So what was so pivotal about that wedding?
So I met, by chance, the groom's best man's wife is a wedding planner.
Best man's wife, interesting, yeah.
Yeah. So she's a wedding planner, and she just set up that year. She's been in events for years and years and years, and she's like run all the rugby championship, all big corporate events, and she decided to set up on her own. And I just was like, we were just chatting, and the wedding it was lovely, but it was slightly disorganized, and she had to step in a few times.
Right.
And then we got chatting, and I was like, oh well, anytime you need a florist, or if there's anything that you think you've seen my work, you see how it works. And so I started to get more work through her. And that has been sort of for me, that has given me the bigger projects. And I've worked out, that, the bigger the budget, the more likely to have a wedding planner.
Mm-hmm.
And actually working alongside wedding planners has pushed me to get some of my much bigger work this year.
Makes
sense. Like I say, I look back on every like 2021 was about portfolio, 2022 was about just getting more jobs and pricing right. I was not pricing right in my first year, and you learn the hard way. And then through that, I've got some really good work this year.
Well, and it's
not really like I'm not getting loads of volume, but I'm getting the quality that I want to be working at.
Yeah. Well, and then I guess once you do that, then the volume grows from there, I imagine.
I hope.
But it's I follow you on Instagram, and it sounds like it looks like there's quite a lot of collaboration in, even that story there about the best man's wife, it just highlights again that importance of networking, verbalizing what you do, not being afraid to share that, connect with other people. And that, from what I understand, that's led you to like photo shoots as well. And, you've built this kind of network where you're all collaborating, and, there's a bit of a team as well, because I've certainly heard people, one concern with that career is, this sort of fear of isolation, and, but I get the sense that actually you work quite a lot with other people, and you've grown business and work through that network, and now they're helping you out on those big weddings. And
definitely. And Instagram's been a great tool for that.
Forage Floristry, just in case you want to follow.
Forage Floristry. But I remember getting my first, I think actually, so within that time frame, so I had that wedding in West Sussex, and 2 weeks before, I got a phone call from a photographer, Sarah, and she's lovely, asking me to do a styled shoot at a venue in Manchester. I remember getting the call, and I was like,
And how did she
"Well,
come
wants
across
me."
you?
Through it was through
Oh,
Instagram.
right.
It was through Instagram, I think. And so she rang me and she was like, "Can you do it?" And I was like, "Yes." And it's difficult for a florist doing a styled shoot because we have our labour, and you have to pay for the flowers.
Right.
So you have to be careful with what you do. But I just said yes. It's a great venue in Manchester, and got to work with some amazing suppliers, and it was a great experience. And I think from that, I got some really lovely photos.
And that was really helpful for
And it
going
was
forward.
really
Yeah.
helpful. And since then, I've done three style shoots with that particular photographer.
Okay.
And she's really changed over the course of those 2 years as well. So it's not like the images are samey, but
Right.
we just work together, and it is quite an isolating industry, really. So it's nice when you get together.
Yeah, good to get those people around. Okay, so when you look back at that transition, that series of career change diaries, so to think, what would you say has been the most challenging or the hardest part of your career change more generally?
Balancing it with home life. You think that if you decide to take on your own business, it's not for everybody. And it's very consuming. Mentally, it's very, very, it's time consuming, especially in the initial stages where you're doing your website and all of this. But I think it's understanding that actually mentally it takes a lot of your mental capacity. Then when you're trying to juggle family life as well as friends, and my kids' diaries are, it's difficult. And the reason I chose to have my own business is because I wanted the autonomy of being able to choose get a good work-life balance. And it's never as easy as you think it's going to be.
No. Yeah.
Things creep in.
It's sort of, yes, there's the autonomy, there's the flexibility, but as you say, it can just take over the bandwidth sometimes. Well, especially when it's so innate to you, going back to the course and how immersed you got into it. I imagine when it's something you enjoy, I'm constantly thinking about psychology and what makes people tick and why they say that, why they say this, and you read all the books and stuff. So yeah, it's difficult when it's such a kind of natural interest anyway. Yeah, it does kind of take up a lot of bandwidth.
And then you have to deal with a sibling spat, and you're like, oh, but I was thinking about what I'm going to do with this and with this.
So it's kind of jumping between topics.
I think that's really challenging. And a really good friend of mine said, she was helping me on a job, and she said to me, "Oh, what's happening about this?" I don't know what it was. And I was like, "Oh, I don't know yet." And she just said, "Oh, that doesn't matter. That's for 3:00, Catherine." And I was like, "What?"
Who's Catherine?
Like, well, I don't. She's one of my mum friends. I get on with her really well. And she's just said, "Well, I've just learnt that there's no point worrying about that right now. I'm going to put that into 3:00, Catherine, because that's when 3:00, Catherine has to do that thing." Right. So if there's a chance that I'm running late or anything, I'll deal with it then. There's no point worrying about it. now.
Yeah.
She's like, so she almost like blocks off her day. And she's like, no, that's 5 o'clock, Catherine. Dinner time is 5 o'clock, Catherine. Homework is 6 o'clock, Catherine.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good one. I might use that.
I thought it was really good, and I was trying to do it, except I'm rubbish, because then I'll pick up my phone and be like, go down an Instagram rabbit hole, going, oh, hang on, that's a good idea.
Yes, tricky one to manage. Okay, so yeah, most challenging, just getting that balance right. Yeah, hard not to think about it when it's something that is quite interesting to you and it's your own business and that sort of thing. So what's been the best bit about changing career then?
Just think, I love what I do. I just love it. And it's not actually just about the flowers, because I would say that 10% of my job is working with flowers. The rest of it is, this is where I can take elements of recruitment and the positive elements of recruitment. It's speaking to people, it's getting the requirement through, it's talking it through, bringing it all together, like their investment in me and the service that I offer, and so from the moment I get an inquiry to the moment the job's done, there'll be difficult bits in between, but I just love it. I love the whole process of it. Don't like admin. And there is a lot of it.
Yes, I imagine that. I always think that with your career, the logistics of it, I don't know how you manage. But interesting that even there, you've taken the themes from what you initially thought you would love about recruitment and maybe the aspects of what you did, and sort of taken that and into a different space. And actually, I'm sure a whole heap of transferable skills and strengths from all that time in recruitment has seen you through into building your business.
And I think that is something that I didn't realize when I was in it. When you're in something you don't really like, it's very easy to be like, well, how am I going to find something different, because I've got no skills for that job. And it's just amazing what you pick up in any job, I suppose, that you actually then think, oh gosh, that's really helped me.
Well, and it not to constrain you enough to limit yourself to what you think you can do. Instead, it's almost choose the career and then work out what's relevant and how you can utilize that. It's a slightly different way of thinking about it. Okay, and this podcast is for other career changers at various different stages of their own journey. So what would your advice be maybe to those people who are umming and ahhing about whether to change career, or maybe just getting going with it, perhaps?
I think I'm just going to go back to the resilience thing and just keep going like that. And sometimes if I'm doing, like, going through all my Instagram scheduling, I'm like, oh, this is not, it feels like it's not working. And it's just like, just keep going, because you just don't know what's around the corner. You don't know.
Okay.
And I just think sometimes if you stop, what if there was just that one person that was about to make the call, or there's somebody out there thinking, oh yeah, I really like that. I'm going to bank that. I'm going to save it, and I'm going to come back to it. And just think, keep on, just keep going.
Just keep swimming.
Yeah. But don't like take a break from it as well. Like, there's no, sometimes, there's just no harm in actually for 2 or 3 days, I just need to have a break.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to happen. Nothing bad is going to happen if you take a break, but just get back on it.
And what do you think kept you going? So perhaps in moments where you had a bit of a wobble and thought, oh, maybe I just can't change career. Maybe I need to go back to recruitment. What kept you going? Or what does keep you going?
I think the desire never to work in an office again keeps me going. If I had to, obviously I would, but if I don't have to, I'm just like, no, that ship has sailed. I think, and I just set myself little goals.
Yeah.
And once I've got them, I just set a few more. I just up them really slowly. You don't go, right, I'm going to have this. I want this project next week. It's like actually break it down, like just those little wins,
and keep you going.
are enough to keep you going. I just, for example, like really small, there's a venue that I've wanted to work at for ages, and I'm doing, and I've just got a gig there, but it's really small. It's literally, I'm just doing the bridal bouquet, and I don't normally do that either. So, I do have a minimum spend, but my thinking was, well, I want to work. I would really, really do want to work at that venue. This couple's really lovely, and I'd like to be showcased there. So on this occasion, I'm not, I'll go for it, and that aligns with my business and things.
Yeah, so kind of break it down into really small goals, so they, as you say, those little wins just kind of keep the ball rolling. Because otherwise, if you set yourself some massive goal, it can just feel too immense and too far away from where you are, and it's more likely to just give up on it. Okay, and last question then, what resources or support or anything that you came across that really just helped you change your career along the way?
Do you mean like what kind of resources?
Well, anything. It may simply be the fact that you did a course. I don't know whether you accessed any funding, whether maybe you were doing research about changing career or starting your own business, whether you came across any sort of helpful input, or maybe hearing what other people had done to get out of recruitment or into floristry or anything like that.
I think the course for me was the biggest change. The course covered not only practical but business, and gave me so much resource, so much information, that I probably didn't need to go too much further. And then I remember being so consumed by flower books and like this desire I was like almost like obsessed with having to know every single flower. You don't have to know every single flower. But in my head, I was like, well, if I'm going to be successful, I have to know every single flower. So I do a lot of that. I don't do that so much now. Now, like, I always spend a lot of time looking at marketing, for example, because actually the most important part of my business is marketing, and I've not done a marketing career. I haven't had a marketing career. I haven't done. So it's really interesting, like how you write things, how to get the hook. So like reading business books, and learning about how algorithms work.
Right. And that's all
using
self-led.
and like Canva.
Okay.
Yeah, I've taught. Yeah, and like everything I've done, I've spent time doing it, and Canva has been like my
good tool.
You know, for a visual person, visual job has been amazing as a tool. And then just reading blogs, listening to in fact, actually, there's a podcast that I listen to every single day for about 6 weeks. This is an Australian florist, and her whole podcast, they're all about business and marketing. They're not about how you create your flowers. They're not about design. It's all about business.
Okay.
And like learned so much from her. Practical work, you know, digital marketing, and it was a really useful free tool.
Yeah. So there's lots out there by the sounds of it for people who want to start their own business. And also move into the floristry too. Okay. Well, that's been fascinating, and even, you know, learning stuff that I didn't know even as your friend. So thank you for sharing all of that. And thank you for coming onto the podcast, and wish you all the best.
Welcome.
So
thank you very much.
Are you happy for people to contact you if they maybe want to hear a bit more about your career transition?
Absolutely.
So Instagram is at Forage Floristry.
At Forage Floristry.
Yep. So they can touch base with you there. And you're Jemma Khan on LinkedIn as well.
I'm Jemma Khan on LinkedIn,
Okay.
And my website is Forage Floristry. You get in touch through there as well.
Good. Well, I look forward to following your success as things grow and grow. I think it's been absolutely amazing what you've managed to achieve in actually quite a short space of time. It's only been a couple of years, and as you said, kicking all that off at a point when people couldn't even have weddings. So I think it's
mental.
But I mean, again, just what a great story and a great lesson that you just never know. And with a bit of resilience, hard work, consistency, things happen. You can make things work for you. So thank you, and all the best. And I'm sure we shall speak soon.
I think I can guarantee that will happen.
All right. Thank you,
All
Jemma.
right, lovely. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.